let me introduce our panelists here. So firstly, we have Simran, who is currently working as a product designer at Rakuten Mobile. And we have Emi, who is currently a product lead at a very popular and multinational insurance company. We aren't allowed to use that name here, so I will just leave it at that. And yeah, and then actually, why don't I let them introduce themselves? So maybe Simran, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey in UX design?
Sure. Firstly, thank you so much for having me here. And I'm just so elated to be a part of this. And thanks, Tanmay, for reaching out. And I really, really appreciate that. So hi, everyone. I am Simran, and I'm currently working as a product designer at Rakuten Mobile. I've been in Tokyo for roughly 3 years now. So my responsibilities till now have been to deliver end-to-end products, which means that I do research, create customer journeys, user stories, and just basically the entire look and feel of a product. Currently, I'm handling 2 major products, and I'm super proud of that. My goal has always been to provide and advocate for user centricity, because that's something I personally believe in as a designer. And to do so, I regularly collaborate with product managers, product owners, project managers, and all that. And in my personal life, I also run a design blog by the name The Design Blog on Instagram. And I'm also a design coach where I share my knowledge of UI and UX to those to those in need. Besides that, I'm also like really dedicated to fitness, and I love to travel whenever I can. Yeah, that's pretty much about me.
All right, great. And then Emi, please. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me to this talk. My name is Emi, and I have worked in the 4 cities so far, which is Tokyo right now, and Seoul before then, and San Jose and San Francisco. And I traveled extensively around the world because of my job and hobby, whatever. So I thought my experience in, dealing with the diversity, I think it's something that really helps my job as a UX designer researcher on a day-to-day basis. And actually, when I was working in San Francisco, I got to know a lot of, PMs there, attending some of the events at Product School San Francisco. So that was kind of a trigger for me, got to know about the world of product management. And I thought there was some critical intersection between UX design and product management. So I thought I would explore that relationship, what's this tension about, and how can we work better? How can we actually benefit and learn from each other? So that's why I actually suggested Tanmay and Simran to have this talk in the first place. So I'm very happy to be here. And, if you want to know more about UX design, not just that, maybe, psychology, because I studied in psychology. So there might be some questions I can solve, on behalf of other panelists. Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And yeah, we definitely have a lot of questions for you guys. So, so I hope you guys have the answers ready, and let's have a great discussion. So before we move on, let me just give like a little bit of a briefing of how we will run this panel discussion. So I have a set of questions that I've prepared, and I would like to use them as prompts to like start some kind of discussions, and then maybe we can have some discussion from the product management side as well, and even some follow-ups. So that's kind of how we'll do. And all throughout the talk, I have made some polls so that we can also have some engagement with our audience. And the chat is always open, and we are really looking forward to even questions from our audience as well. So if you guys put something in the chat, then I'll try to ask it if we have time. And towards the end of the session, we'll have a completely open forum where anyone can ask any kind of questions that we may have missed out, or like something that panelists answer. So yeah, so with all that, I would like to start with our first poll so that we can just get a gauge of our audience and what kind of roles they have and what are they interested in. So let me launch that poll. I hope you guys can see it. So there's 2 questions. One is to just understand what best describes your current role, and the other would be like, so from these themes that we are talking about, which ones would interest you the most. So please feel free to start answering the poll, and then in the meanwhile, I would like to go ahead with my first question if our panelists are ready. All right, great. So in that case, I guess the most basic question I would like to ask is, so what is a UX designer? I think we should clarify that first for the benefit of everyone and especially me. And maybe another thing I would like to ask is, what makes a good UX designer? So like, if you are a UX designer, how can I say that you're a good UX designer? And I would like to start this as an open question. So maybe Simran, you can start with your opinions, and then let's see how that goes.
Awesome. So it's obviously the one of the most basic questions. So to understand what a UX designer really does, I think it's important to understand what UX design is. So user experience was introduced in the early 90s by Donald Norman, who was one of the early birds at Apple. So to put it simply, UX design is simply focused on how a user interacts with a product in real time. Now, it applies to both physical and digital products. So it can be web, app, or even a table and chair. So all the interaction that goes on with a user and the product is basically what UX design is. So to further narrow it down in simpler language, a UX designer aims to make that interaction and experience that I explained between a product and the user easier, simpler, and seamless. Now, while this may sound easy, there's a lot more that goes into making it simpler for the user. And just to keep the user first, so there's things like creating customer journeys, endless research, user personas, wireframing, prototyping, conceptualizing the entire process, and just endless iteration that goes into making it simpler for the user, for the end user. Now, the question that you asked, that what makes a UX designer, I think I want to keep it pretty simple. So a great UX designer is the one who focuses on the user and their needs. So yeah, that's what makes a great UX designer. Emi, do you have any other things that you would like to add to this?
Yeah, because Simran, you just clarified on what makes a UX designer. I'm going to focus my answer on what makes a good UX designer. I think there's a huge difference between a good designer and just a designer, because we see an overall, supply of designers in the market these days. So what makes, somebody a good designer? I would maybe, just narrow down on three things. The first one is that you see there's a tri-circle there. So there's a business feasibility and technical feasibility and business viability, and there's a desirability for users. I think a good UX designers, they know how to bring out all these three things together as three pillars of user-centric design. At the center of this tri-circle is innovation. So a good designer is someone who goes beyond just the physical touch point. He or she knows how to put it all together and bring it up to something that's really desirable, not just useful and functional and reliable, but it needs to be desirable for the users. So, and try to connect the dots together seamlessly. That's actually a huge job to do, but yeah. And the second one is that I think a good UX designer, they know how to bring life to a physical product. They actually create an experience rather than just a product. So you know how to learn, to build this customer and user journey map rather than just a product and release it at the end of the day, goodbye. But you are gonna keep track of, all the customer journey and try to make sure that the users actually benefit and enjoy the experience through the customer life cycle. They know how to connect the dots between the product life cycle and the customer life cycle value. I think the third one might be a little bit subjective, but I think good ones are professional empathy machines. So they know how to take the perspective of users, how to empathize with the users. They actually live the life of a user, actually, just to think, oh, I'm the user of the product that I create, and try to do user research, go to the source and collect all the data, voice of users all the time, and try to empathize with them every minute. So it needs to be within your system, within your DNA all the time. So I think those are the three things that makes a good UX designer.
I see. Yeah, I think we should definitely take a note of those things, and I'll also summarize these points later in an article so that we can remember those. But I think those are really great points. And now that we kind of know what a UX designer is and what makes a good UX designer, I'm also interested to know about, like, what do you do on a daily basis? Like how what kind of tasks do you have? What kind of people are you speaking to? And just, yeah, like what would a daily life look like for a UX designer? And maybe it's interesting to know that to know from both of you about this, since you guys are at different level of the career. So Simran, you are somewhere mid-career, whereas Emi, you are in the leadership position. So how does it differ that way as well? So maybe I would like to start with Simran again, so we can know what you do, and then let's shift to Emi after that.
Sure. So firstly, Amy, I think that was a pretty great answer that you gave as to what really makes a great UX designer. So thanks for that. So now coming on what my daily life or just daily work life looks like. So while there are a multitude of responsibilities that I have as a UX designer, like I mentioned, there could be research, there could be wireframing, there could be visual layouting, there could be creating the customer journey. So there are multiple roles that we need to play, so multiple hats that we need to put on, but that does not mean that we do them every day. So maybe for one whole week, I would just be putting on one hat at one time. I can't possibly do all of them together. So my daily life in general would basically start with gathering the exact requirement, and knowing what the requirement is. Once we have a requirement, sometimes we do get a defined problem, but sometimes we do not. So we'd sit to define the problem, and that is backed up by research. And so then we shift to doing research, and we get some quantitative and qualitative data based on what the problem is and what we're trying to achieve and solve. Once we have the research, we start with creating user personas and creating customer journeys. So this is based on empathy. So we really need to put ourselves in the user's shoes to sort of solve this, or to just play this role. We really need to empathize a lot to actually bring out the best possible customer journey that there is. Once we have more clarity on that, we shift to maybe wireframes. Then wireframes are tested, and we receive feedback. We iterate those wireframes, and then we move to creating the visual layouts, and which is an ongoing iterative process forever. So that's what and how I would work, but I won't do all of them together. I'd spend like a week or sometimes even a month, depending on the problem statement. So that's pretty much what a mid-career UX designer does, and I'd love to hear more from you, Emi.
Yeah, thanks, Simran. I think you perfectly described, what should be like design thinking and what UX designer should do on a day-to-day basis. So actually, so for me, I share some of the routine works that you were doing. But when I joined, the new company and I started leading a team of designers, I thought, oh, might be, something missing in the work that I do. Because before, my work was pretty much, it was focused on like ideation, prototyping. So I actually realized there's no touch point with my users, who should be actually the leaders and, the customers of users of my product. So I thought I would go to the field and actually do some field work, listening to their voices, just like the research that you're doing. But I think what's missing here is through the design thinking process. So there are like 5 steps, which is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and you want to test, and there's an iteration process. I thought something missing in my portfolio was actually empathy part. So you can do prototyping, ideation all the time with the designers and DevOps guys and business people. I don't know what kind of stakeholders you work with, but for me, that empathy part, how can I resolve that? So let me share my screen actually to describe you, more like visually. So yeah. So here I prepared some, like a Kanban board. I'm not sure how much you guys are actually using this type of, project management board, but it's actually not just for PMs or project managers. It's also for UX designers. So there's like a, design thinking process. Yeah, any.
Can you share the link?
There's some kind of. Okay, so I try to use this board like Kanban, and one of the best tools I would use is the Trello board. You can download it for free. So you want to do like, make sure that there's enough empathy content through this, the process of a product development and design, and there's enough definition part, ideation, and there's enough prototyping and test. Usually designers, they're very good, managing the prototyping part, actually pushing pixels part, but the empathy part, you will have to actually make effort, go out to, make a time for doing it. So you needed to get consensus from stakeholders, maybe get some funding for doing user research. Sometimes it's just your passion that gets you there and, get funding just by luck, But anyways, make sure that you use this kind of, design thinking Kanban board and make sure there's enough empathy part. So I think that's what I try to do on a day-to-day basis. So make sure there's enough empathy part through my well-balanced design thinking team portfolio. Yeah. What about you, Tamme? Yeah, what do you do as a PM, and what's your, collaboration like with the UX designers?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you want to focus on, or do you want, one or more?
Yeah, after hearing Simran's answer, I felt like product managers do, especially since I'm also kind of mid-career level, they do a lot of similar stuff while they're doing a lot of things, but I guess we don't have the liberty of focusing on one thing at a time. We really have to be in each aspect at all times.
There's different hats and
yeah, exactly. So that's, I guess, a big difference point where we would be doing 5 things at the same time. And at the same time, we're talking to the business unit or the developers or the testing team, as well as a lot of designers, because maybe our products are in different stages at different times, right? Or even at the same time. And I guess one more thing I was interested to know was that since now you are leading a team, how does it feel to lead, like to manage designers? Because I feel like designers are like artists, right? They are creative, and they may have their moods, or they may have, like they may be different from the developers who are, or like engineers who maybe have a different type of personality. So do you have trouble doing that, or is that something that comes naturally to you? Or do you agree with my statement? I guess those are some of my questions.
Yeah, actually, I think UX designers, we are supposed to be same, but basically we have different DNAs too, like each individual, right? So I try to find what's the, the most strength this person has, like A and B and C and D. A has a good prototyping skill, B has good research skill, C has some good stakeholder management skill. And sometimes they're just the social skills, communication skills, sometimes that just delivers, So I try to put all the dots together in one basket. That's my team, and I try to work it out. So I think it's a great important to try to find the strengths in each and every one person, rather than trying to put everyone in one box and try to force to do the same thing. It should be throughout this well-balanced design thinking portfolio, different personality, but same team. Yeah.
So basically you are saying that UX designers can have like one specialty, and it's okay to have that? Or do you think a good UX designer should have should be great in all the different aspects like you mentioned?
Yeah, good question. Actually, I want to ask Simran as well. My quick answer, really, it's gonna be like 1 hour or two. So the answer is that you want to be like a T-shaped designer. So for PMs, you guys want to be needed to be like jack of all trades, they say. For designers, it's actually the same. So you need to have the whole breadth and the whole depth. So while you have all the, the variety of the skill set, you also want to focus on 1 or 2 things, which can be user research, data management, which can be, something else, I don't know, you can explore. So yeah, both the breadth and depth, important. What about you, Simran?
Yeah, I think I was,
feel
as soon as I heard that question, I was about to mention T-shaped designers. I think more than designers specializing in one thing, they should have knowledge about each and then sort of specialize into one thing, because what that does is that gives you, as a designer, it gives you the liberty to maybe solve another problem if it arises, rather than just being focused on user research. I should also be able to do wireframe, if I have the specialization. So like Emi said, having the being just a T-shaped designer is I think the way to be. Yeah, figure out and learn about everything and then specialize into one thing, and then you can, like I said, you can just wear multiple hats depending on the role, day, situation, because I do believe that as designers we have creative blockers every day. So I might be creative today and I might be able to deliver the best, let's say, wireframes today, but I might not, and tomorrow I might be able to deliver the best I don't know, visual layouting. So
Right.
so I think just to tackle that as a team as well, I think specialization in one, but having knowledge in all is sort of necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the reality. We need to have it all and also have a good focus. So, that's the market situation. I'm sure there's some like agency or so, HR managers, so they might be able to answer better. But yeah, that's the general expectation. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, I got it. And yeah, I think that kind of covers a lot of the questions, like just general questions. We are just getting started. So there's a lot more. And I think you guys are seeing the poll results as well. So as you can see, most of the people here are product managers or designers. So that's great. So like you can use more of that terminology in your answers as well. And they are very interested to know about the next two themes that we'll be talking about, which is collaboration between UX and PM, as well as UX design processes. So based on that, I would like to then ask another question to our audience, since collaboration is one of the key elements of today's talk. So I guess two questions I would like to ask people is, have you ever worked with designers before? And have you ever faced friction, frustration, or miscommunication working with designers? I think so. Me personally, I have faced some issues as well. And one of the reasons for this talk, or just me communicating with Emi or Simran, is that how can I, as a product manager, empathize more with designers and then try to understand and maybe find some middle ground. And we'll try to cover those cases here as well. And I guess, as you can see, the general vibe does seem to be a lot of people have worked and have faced issues. So yeah, so maybe before I ask I guess my next question is connected to my story. And my story is that while working with designers, a lot of times what will happen is that like the designer I'll tell the designer the problem or the kind of requirements. And a lot of the times they're coming from the BU, which are like, okay, this strictly we have to do this. There's no way we can't do this. So as product managers, we'll try to find, okay, this is kind of the way we can do this without maybe using a lot of developer resource or tester resource as well, because even the smallest change here or there could lead to a lot of extra test cases or like some development or some, like extra API calls, etc. But then when I speak to the designers, they have a very idealistic, they want to give the best user experience possible. And then there becomes this gap where I may understand, yes, this is the best user experience, but it's not something we can do. And then that's where the arguments kind of start. So I guess like I would like to ask Simran this question as to like, have you and I guess one more point we can think about is like product managers also have some kind of UX sense or design sense, like it comes with our job. So it's not also like that's why the frustration comes in, because maybe we also feel like we may know something or we don't know. But obviously, since you are the guys who have the deep knowledge, like whether you other issues working with product well, and those kind of issues laid out, maybe like we can think about, okay, what would be the best way to solve those things, right? So yeah, so Simran, like, have you faced issues working with product managers, and like what kind of issues do you face? I'm interested to know.
Yeah, so I actually worked with product managers every day.
Yeah.
And the issues that I face are endless. So I think I will be able to share my 2 cents on that for sure. So in an ideal world, a product manager and a designer should get along like, a perfect couple, which obviously will be extremely beneficial for the company and of course the product. However, this is not an ideal world, and neither is there a perfect couple, so we do not get along. So coming to why we don't get along, so now there are a myriad of reasons why PMs and designers are in a continuous brawl, but I think I'll speak from my perspective as a designer, to state just one of those reasons. I think the main cause of friction between designers and PMs are timelines. So what I mean by that is a designer might require a certain amount of time required for a refined design, whereas on the other hand, the PM has to consider extremely tight, sometimes unrealistic, sorry, Tanmay, timelines. So which sometimes does not leave enough time for the designer to, create an output that is the most viable solution out there, like you mentioned. And as a designer, personally, I want to put out like 100% of what I can. So I don't get the time to do that sometimes. So which means that when that does not happen, there are changes coming in, which sort of results in creating a vicious cycle of continuous friction, as there will be change in approach, thought process, and possibly the sprint cycles as well, right? So while I'm just speaking of one thing that creates this friction, I think there's a lot more, and that was just my perspective as a designer. What do you think, Tanmay? What bothers you most about us?
Well, now that I have the permission to say whatever, no, I'm just kidding. No, I think like I said, the the way of user experience is really important. But as you said, one, like I can even think of it from the other way. Like if I say we want to make this small change, from my perspective, maybe it might seem like a small change, but like it might change so much design on like some other page or some other flow, etc. And I guess like the main issue is that we aren't able to get on the same page about the problem, right? I guess PMs are coming with their own solutions, UX designers have their own solutions, and maybe the issue here is that we need to discuss the problem together so that we can come with a solution together. I think like that could be one way. But I guess since Emi has more experience and maybe she has worked with many product managers and solved issues or faced issues as well, do you have any such like ways to bridge this gap or like make this kind of argument between PMs and designers? How can we like work together, like that idealistic relationship that
Oh, yes, that's
There is a
actually
possible way.
okay.
yeah.
Just like you guys, I have had my moments, like tough moments, pain points with the PMs. But I think it's sometimes just attitude change. It really helps because it really comes down to the question of like human heart, openness, honesty. So I think, there's many divorce cases happening, and they're like 35% divorce rate. In the United States, it's like a 45%, right? So why people are, getting divorced is because I don't think it's a personality difference. It's more like a perspective difference. So one of the things they can do to bridge the understanding, gap in understanding is maybe to, initiate some kind of a communication. And to be honest, PMs, they're more like, managers. They know how to handle things a little bit better than designers. So I hope someone like Tamme, you actually reach out to designers, maybe set a one-on-one, have a coffee chat, I hope it like a regular communication rather than just one-off chit chat and end up nowhere. So set up some kind of a weekly one-on-one and go out and maybe try to understand each, other's tasks better. Maybe you can shadow PM, maybe Simran, like half a day or something. Try to shadow, Tammei for half a day and see what kind of jobs PM's actually doing. What does it mean, like a jack of all trades, like strategy and decision making, defining problem space. It's a really, amazing. So the kind of work they do. So I would try to take the perspective of a PM and go out and have a chat, and also PMs. You needed to understand the importance of a UX these days, because really your performance, it really depends on usability. So I really hope you understand the importance and treat the UX designers well. And that will bring a lot of nice ideas for usability, and yeah, just to try to, treat each other better with honesty. Just like attitude sometimes, yeah.
Wow, that's a very wholesome answer to such a fiery conversation we were having earlier. Yeah, I completely agree. I think building trust can make things much easier, because then both sides can make concession whenever needed, or like push that, really say, okay, I really believe in this solution, we have to do it this way. And yeah, so that way I think it might be interesting. So I will definitely keep that in mind next time I see this happening. So that means I have to build better relationship with the designer and solve it.
Building trust, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So yeah, I think
I'd like to add one last thing.
Sure, please.
Yeah, please.
Is that one thing that sometimes just doesn't go right is that the PM sometimes are more focused on the business goals, whereas the designer is more focused on the user. Sometimes the PMs might lose sense of the user and the usability because they have of course they have a business to maintain. So I think maybe striking balance for both the designers and the PMs, in the sense that the designers could maybe consider more business and learn more business sense from the PMs, while the PMs can learn more about the users from the designers. I think striking that balance and that knowledge between these two great minds can actually benefit and bring out so much more to the table. Yeah, that's something I'd like to just put up.
I completely agree. Like I think especially like Emi's suggestion was that designers should try to shadow PM sometime, or like just drop in the meetings and see what kind of conversations we are having. How do we shield them from the BU's sometimes unnecessary requirements, or like the developers' technical questions and those kind of things as well. And yeah, I think one more point I would like to add in this is that if there is a conflict between business goal and user goal, I think if the team has a really strong product vision, that could really also solve that problem, because in the end we see what is the product vision and what is important for that. So in that case, we can even like make concession on the business goal, because maybe in the long term it would solve our vision, which should be intertwined with the company vision or the company business vision as well. So yeah. Maybe,
and the vision should be user-centric design.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have the common vision.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, I think we had a really great discussion on that.
Talk.
Yeah, and I think we could like definitely keep on going on that. So let's continue, and hopefully some other people would chime in as well.
Yeah.
Like, since we have more themes, and then process was also something that a lot of people were interested in. So I would like to just maybe take a small detour into the process side of things and learn a little bit more from you guys. So yeah, I have actually another poll about processes, and let me just launch it. And let me see, just quickly understand, what our audience is working with. So the question is, what is your current development methodology? So we have agile, waterfall, hybrid, and then we have an answer for, I don't know what that means. And we are getting some questions from the chat. So yeah, David, basically, as long as the panel discussion goes, we would like to just focus on the speakers. But then after the session, we have a open session where anyone can, ask questions directly or just have a discussion. But in the meanwhile, if you have anything you would like to maybe sneak into the panel discussion, please feel free to put it in the chat. And I'll try to push it in.
Oh, sorry.
So it seems like most of the people in our, sorry?
Did you?
Emi, did you want to say something?
Oh, sorry, it was breaking up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I think my
yeah.
internet's to blame.
Okay.
Is it okay now?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying that our audience seems to be mostly working in Agile. Actually, it's almost like balanced out between Agile and hybrid. And then some people also don't know what it means. So I guess before we start, maybe Emi, could you like very quickly in 30 seconds, let's see if you can do this, explain the difference between Agile, waterfall, and hybrid to the audience that may not know what it means.
Are you able to do that? Maybe you can do it better because I don't really live in the product cycle right now. So I'm really
okay. Sure, I can do that. Let me try. So as we mentioned, these are three different product development methodologies. And so waterfall simply means that we do things one after the other. You know, we have a set scope of doing things. And basically we will, after only one thing is done, it's handed over to the next team, and then the next team works on it and it's handed over. So actually, Japan was one of the ones to pioneer this kind of way of doing things, because they were making consumer electronics and cars. And in cars or in machinery, you have to go one by one. So that worked really well. And then Japan became one of the largest economies of the world. But in software development, it may not work the best way, simply because the same, like when you sell a car, it's not like you would update the car, you know, while you build it. Or like if you sell a TV, the hardware of the TV you cannot update it, but software needs to be constantly updated and improved and iterated upon while it's still being used by the user. And that's why this new methodology came in, which is Agile, which means that in a certain sprint of time, you take a certain set of goals and you keep you keep releasing and then fixing in those certain sprint times. So like maybe you took a 2-week or a 1-month sprint. 1 month is still quite high in Agile, but like 2 weeks would be the optimal. And you decide, okay, in this sprint, these are the few things that we need to do, and you release them. And then in the next sprint, you do improvements, and then you do new things. So it's kind of like a constant iteration of the process. So in just very new startups or like in mid-level companies, Agile works very well. However, in really big companies where you have a lot of roadblocks, maybe from legal, from business, or like there's a lot of people involved, it might be really hard to do Agile. So that's why a lot of companies start doing a mix of Agile and waterfall, which is then called hybrid. And yes, this is my brief explanation. Obviously, we can go much deeper, but my question, the reason why I asked this question was that, as I mentioned, in Agile or in different things, we keep doing constant changing. We keep running tests like A/B testing or user testing, etc. And we keep iterating. And I'm interested to know, like, as a designer, you could have a million ideas you would like to try or improve certain things. So like, when do you decide to stop? Like, when do you think, okay, this is the time when it's done, we need to move on to the next thing, or like, it's okay, we don't need to touch it right now because it's doing well. And it's an open question, so anyone can answer this, but yeah, and there's something I was curious to know.
Okay, so I can answer that. So firstly, to give a quick brief to understand what it means to iterate, is that we start with a problem and then we work towards the end. After producing the output, it's analyzed. And then based on that, it goes into an iterative cycle to, of course, further improve the results, right? So I'll begin this answer by touching on the benefits of iterative design. And by benefits, I mean there are numerous benefits of iterative design. So one is that it's possibly the best way to figure out what to add, what is missing, and what needs to be removed. But like Tanmay mentioned, it can't happen with physical products like a car or or a television, right? So this is, I'm speaking only for digital products. Then the other benefit can be that it provides us with a quick feedback of the user, which in turn amplifies on providing solutions for the user, which makes it more user-centric, you know. Then also it's great for the company as it gives its stakeholders better visibility on its progress. Besides that, I think it's also great for the team to feel rewarded to learn where and how they can do better. So now to address the elephant, which is when to really stop iterating, the answer is that we don't, according to me. And that's simply because we live in a fast-paced, dynamic world where there will always be room to improve, or there will be some form of advancement that we sort of need to align ourselves with. So on that bit, I actually remember this quote by Vince Lombardi, which states that perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfection, we can catch excellence, you know. So while iteration is an ongoing process in this fast-paced world we're living in, but we can always sort of aim to strike excellent and a seamless product. So to summarize, when do you stop iterating? Either all the user needs and business goals have been met, which I don't think will ever happen given the fast-paced world that we're living in, or you just never stop iterating. Yeah, that's those are my 2 cents.
Yeah, maybe I can add a few points to Simran's answer. So because I'm very interested in doing data-driven design and actually trying to push for more data-driven design. And so I think eventually we needed to, start to looking at the data and to understand, what should be the best point for stopping iteration. The first one, like a small data, you can conduct the user research and like eye tracking or user interview, or you can just, go on observation, whatever. So get some kind of a user feedback from the real users of your product. And that can be small data. And the big data can be something like Adobe Analytics, Google Analytics, and usage data, voice of a customer data. So those big data can also inform you, where people are dropping off and, when people are signing up and if they're actually enjoying it or not. So one thing that I thought, I want to emphasize is that we should not look at only conversion metrics, which is like sales numbers, the sign-up rates. What are the sign-up rates today? How many money that we have actually? What's the revenue? So, because that's actually a KPI. That's not necessarily about UX metrics. So the metrics we need to look at actually to measure, the delight and the satisfaction of users is actually, user engagement metrics such as repeat users, dwell time, average session duration, page views, bounce rate and exit pages, something like that. So, we should continue to look at those like, user engagement metrics. And if people are really enjoying your product or not, are they really dropping off? And if they do, where they are dropping and what should be the reason? And then you can go back to small data, conduct user research, delve into why part. And if you have answer for the why, then go back to big data and get some kind of what part. Try to, look out for anomalies and what's the, engagement rate again. So back and forth. And if you try to like synthesize both the big and small data, you will be able to understand when to stop really. I mean, literally. So, well, this is literally the time that I need to move on to maybe another, another product or I don't know, enhancement. So I think it should be data-driven really. Both data-driven, also heuristics, which is like a gut feeling. So both needed to be in balance, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like data can definitely provide what the user does, but it's actually the UX KPIs that show why the user feels what they feel.
Shouldn't be, product API, sorry, Tamme, but that's the product thing, so
yeah. So like, I totally agree with you. So like actually spending time on UX KPIs as a company, client, or even a designer can help you move closer to the tangible side of the story, which I think is pretty important in this process. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess, Simran, so you mentioned UX KPIs. So I was more interested to know what are UX KPIs? Like, what are some of the metrics that UX designers track to, like, I guess because UX design is not very tangible. I guess it's like, it's the experience building, right?
Yeah.
So how can you say that this was working or this was not working? What are the ways you track it? Like, and Emi, I would like to ask you this question since you mentioned data-driven design as well. So yeah, please let me know. Oh, sorry, yeah, am I breaking up again?
Yeah.
Just a little bit, yeah.
So much.
Okay.
But I figured
But you got my question, right?
yeah.
Did you get my question?
Yeah. So actually, I just mentioned briefly. So like a big, data and small data. So, user research, you want to hear actually, like why question, why they are satisfied and why they are stopping there, why they are moving on, those kind of a why question can be the small data part. And with the big data, like Google Analytics, you can look at like repeat users, dwell time, average session time, and, bounce rate, exit pages, and page views, so something like that. Yeah, it's actually very challenging to try to synthesize both like a quantifiable and the qualitative metrics. But I think it's something that you need to explore really, because in the in the UX industry, there's no like established, methodology for actually trying to like triangulate all these different, metrics. So you will have to just, try to explore, how you want to combine those two to see and why and what part together in balance.
I see. Cool. Yeah, and in the meanwhile, I just wanted to mention that Oliver and David in the chat had some really good questions. So hopefully they can stick around to ask this directly to you guys, because I feel like it would be beneficial to everyone to know that as well. So yeah, guys, hopefully you guys can ask that question in the session later. And yeah, I guess so that kind of tells me more about UX metrics, as well as like how UX works in agile and iteration. And one of the other key themes that we wanted to talk about, since this is ProductTank Tokyo, was about, I guess, UX design, or just generally design in Japan, and how that's, how that works and what is the story behind it. And yeah, as always, I have another poll to get a sense of our audience. And I'm really interested to see the answers that people can say.
Yeah,
So
please.
yeah, I'm interested to know what people think about UX in Japan, especially for digital. And in the meanwhile, I would like to ask, sorry, someone said in the chat about some, oh, okay, sorry, it's an answer to David, so we'll discuss that later. Never mind. And yeah, so while we are waiting, I guess, so how long have you guys been in Japan, Simran and Emi?
I've been here for 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah.
And what about you, Emi?
Yeah, like as a shakaijin, as a professional, 3 years so far.
3 years. Okay, so
a
it
little
seems
longer than that, but like childhood. Yeah.
Okay. And have you had, like, before these 3 years, did you have any like connection to the design industry in Japan, or like were you aware of?
Yeah, on a daily basis, actually. I work with some creative agencies, and because we need to understand Japanese users, not like a global, audience. So yeah, I need to work with the Japanese companies. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And yeah, okay, so our poll's been answered by maybe like half of the people. And so we seem to have a very, let me share the results as well in case we are done. So yeah, so as you can see, most of the people obviously have used some digital service. I'm very interested to see that there's people who haven't used anything. How are you guys surviving? But yeah, so it seems like the UX on these apps seems neutral to most people. And also some people mentioned very user-friendly, but some people also mentioned not user-friendly at all. I guess my first question is, do you think this kind of polarization exists in say the US as well? Like, would people say like an app like a very popular app like Google or Instagram, it could be very user-friendly but also not user-friendly at all? Or is it something unique to Japan itself? Oh, anyone can answer this question, or if you want me to like repeat my question as well.
Okay, I can take that up.
Yeah.
I think I think the answer for that is, I think opinions are always polarized. Like users can't, all the users as a whole can't feel the same, right? So
Yeah.
for someone, maybe if there was someone possibly in their 60s who's got a new computer, they would say, no, I don't like the user experience, versus someone who is extremely new or someone who's learning can have a different opinion. So I think opinions are always polarized in general. So yeah, it's not just limited to Japan for sure. Yeah.
I think it really depends on the product.
Yeah.
In general, I think not so much advanced when it comes to user experience. Not in design, yes, but not like user experience is something different. But yeah, there are some very, like innovative like UX these days that also developed by, I don't know, Rakuten, some other companies. So obviously Japanese audience is getting a little more exposure to good UX these days. So I think it really depends on, like a good or bad, UX. There's some extremely, obviously, yeah.
Okay, I see. And yeah, I guess my next question was kind of like around the theme of that. When I came to Japan, I had this impression that Japan has really high tech industry, and it's like on par with the global standard. And I kind of felt that by whenever you go into the trains, or you're like, you're going, especially with physical products, I got this sense of, okay, they're really thinking about like whoever is going to be using it. They have a lot of things thought out. But maybe in the digital, like when I was using the apps, it was really different from like how apps were in India or like the US. And I was really interested to see why, like, or what is the reason behind this difference of the way the UI looks or the way the user experience feels. And yeah, I guess that's my question first to Simran, as to like, do you know why there's such a difference between like physical products versus digital products? And although, yeah, like I guess that would be the question.
Yeah, no, that's actually quite an interesting question. And even in my personal life, if I ever mentioned Japan to others, it is mostly perceived as a super advanced country, right? So I'm sure at least a few of you present here have the same perception about Japan, and it is actually quite true. Japan is very, very high tech when it comes to its physical products. I mean, we really do have self-warming vedettes here, right? So talking about UX in Japan, it is extremely well thought of when it comes to its physical products, like Tanmay mentioned, like product packaging, toilets, elevators, and more. However, when it comes to the digital products, I think Japan has not evolved drastically or does not meet the global standards. So like on one hand, if you think of the global website visually, you would maybe think of minimalism, white space, and just a harmonized website. Whereas in Japan, these websites are extremely dense, right? Packed with advertising, and there is excessive use of bright and contrasting colors, and there are innumerous columns. Like it's just an ongoing website, like it never seems to end, right? So it may sound surprising to all our listeners here today, but there is a solid reason as to why these digital products are not as advanced and modernized if they were to be compared to the global standard. One of the major factors that play a role in this is the Japanese culture, the mental model, like we say. So the Japanese consumer in general is extremely hesitant to change. So if there was something that was shown to them that they're not used to, they would not trust it. So speaking of trust, the Japanese consumer requires an unlimited number of assurances when it comes to purchasing a product, which is why the websites are like packed with so much information, so lengthy information. Like just a simple image and maybe 500 reviews won't be converted to sales here in Japan. So like I said, Japanese people love to feel familiar with what they see every day, or where they were, or where they could go, like a place like Shibuya and Shinjuku. So it's pretty surprising. And if you think about it, they do have an uncanny resemblance to these popular places, where once you enter, you can see advertising everywhere, the use of neon websites, and you're just like bombarded with these colors, contrast, and advertising everywhere as you go. So their websites also provide the same look and feel to their users. Like, isn't that interesting? Like, they just want to maintain a sense of comfort, and they do not want to burst any consumer bubble that they might currently be living in. Right, Emi? What do you think?
Yeah, actually, you answered all the answers. So actually, that's exactly what I was gonna say. So, oh, by the way, maybe we can actually take a look at the real, design example. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
I think that'd be great. Maybe
Yeah, okay, let me, share it with you guys then. So I'm not here to critique anything, but I just wanna, I prepared a Rakuten website to show if it really showcases, what, Simran just explained. So let's take a look at this website, and maybe I can use Tammei as my test participant. So let's do a quick user test, and so I will give you like a 3-5 seconds. So you can just look at the website and tell me what your first impression is like.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, I've seen this website enough times.
Okay, you are but I think it makes a really perfect.
Yeah, no, but
yeah, so take a look at this one then. I prepared the 2 versions. So,
yeah,
might be something similar, but when it comes to problem statement,
yeah, I mean, I think here as well as on the other side, it makes me feel like I'm in the market. Like there's a lot of maybe like these things look like flyers, or something that someone would hand to me as a promotion, and then I can use it to go to the store. And then there's a lot of text on the images as well, which is really interesting. I'm not so used to that, but basically, yeah, a lot of text around here. And just for me as an international person, it gives me a feeling of very overwhelming. But as I'm starting to think, as Simran said, maybe it's comforting to someone who's used to this from a very early age.
Yeah, thanks for your answer, by the way. So this is the way that I actually do, like, down the whole way user test or something. So always get the first impression. I think you're on spot. So yeah, actually you can see the first thing is that it's so cramped with the text density there, and the text is not very legible, to be honest. And what I see in here in this design is actually, like Simran said, mental model of like wood blocks. So if you know like ukiyo-e, like wood blocks, they work with the pieces of wood together, and with the components, they put the kind of layout together, like wood blocks. So I think that kind of mental model is still there, and they, somehow designers in Japan, they still see it like, how to put together all the newspaper layout, like the component and the text and headlines and, some detail here and there. So all the components are fighting for it, against each other. Actually, there's so much competition going on. So that's the first thing that I see. And the second one is that, so Tammei, is it more comfortable for you to look at this site, maybe?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Actually, I'm used to more like this kind of a design as well. So you can see the, very distinct difference between the Japan design and some global design. And the big difference that I see, along with the text density is that I see a lot of info density, data density, maybe some kind of campaign going on, but I don't, I want to get engaged a little more. So by bringing a little more space and layout, some kind of breathing, room here and there. So I get engaged in this content, and there's some kind of potential for user experience, new experience actually coming up in this design. So rather than trying to put together like data information, maybe, we should start thinking how we can actually bring new experience for users and open up new possibility for them to actually experience the brand brand and the design and the, whatever campaigns and the, so yeah, I mean, it's all about user experience these days, not just the, flat design. So that's my observation. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, thanks for the examples. I mean, like I said, I think Japanese consumers require a lot of assurances. So like just an image,
right, every
like an image, three lines aren't going to cut it for them. So they're just not going to trust the website. They're not going to trust the company. They need to be reassured. Maybe that could explain the text density there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think like these points have also got a lot of people in the chat talking about their experiences as well.
Right.
And I saw one line that was really interesting. It was like, the West sells an experience, Japan sells specs. Like, and it kind of maybe comes from that mindset of cars and, making like cars, TVs, consumer electronics, etc. And maybe the packaging or the advertising for that used to be very like information dense. Yeah. So I guess like we might be running out of time, but like I would like to ask a few more questions. How does this as a UX designer make you feel when you have to adapt to like a completely different mental model from maybe what you're used to? And, like how would you like, is this a challenge for UX designers? Is this a fun one, or is this something not so fun and you just have to like do it because it's required?
Yeah. I think it really comes down to balance. So there's something beautiful about the old mental model, which is like wood block ukiyo-e that I really like actually. Like, Murakami Haruki, and he's my best artist who uses all this flat design, right? Like manga and all the ukiyo-e type of a printing. So that kind of a printing mental model, it has something beautiful to provide even for us in living in 21st century. And there's some new novelty factor from outside of Japan, from US and some in other countries like, advanced in UX. So if you can try to, put together all the dots and see, what's the best for Japan. I don't think we need to generalize what's the best and bad, good and bad UX, but try to get the best, capture the best from each other and try to synthesize into a new form of experience for Japanese users. There needs to be uniqueness in it and also, deep understanding about the user behavior in Japan. Yeah.
I got it. Yeah, I think that was a really great discussion, and I really wish to continue this sometime if we all can meet in person.
Yeah.
And yeah, so since we are running out of time, I think
time here. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just quickly ask a final concluding questions, especially about the UX design career. And I guess I read a little bit about Simran's background, and it turns out that, or actually both of you do not have a design degree as such. So with that said, how does one become a UX designer? How does one gain that technical or mental skill? And how did you guys do it? So I guess quickly we can you can summarize your journey into design. We can start with Simran.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I actually get this question quite a lot. So for me, there are two solid ways to seamlessly transition into a UX career. Now, by that, I don't mean running to get a degree, because I myself do not have it, right? So the first thing would be to learn about it. And like I mentioned, it doesn't necessarily have to be to go to college. You could do online courses, read articles, and watch videos online. And my first suggestion would be to get acquainted with the basics of design, the foundations of design, like color, balance, contrast, typography, and all that. So once you understand that, you can start learning about the UX process, its methodologies and techniques, like Emi mentioned earlier in our chat, that empathizing, ideating, creating, and testing. And once I had that, now I knew the basic, and I also knew how UX works, right? So it was time for me to step up and learn the design tools. So at that time, when I personally learned, Sketch was a very important requirement. So I learned Sketch, then I learned Photoshop, then I learned Adobe XD. Now I'm working on Figma. So you basically learn the software, the design tools that can help you create a product, right? And then the last thing is one of the most important things is practice, right? Because, and I cannot emphasize enough as to how important practice is, because learning design in theory is great, but you don't really learn about design, UX, or you don't even know yourself as a designer unless you start practicing. So my major focus was practice. I took up so many design challenges, and then I created a portfolio and applied to internships, and then I got a job. So that was my one route. And of course, the second way is to transfer what you already have. So there are so many transferable soft skills that we develop during high school, colleges, job experiences, and personal experiences, right, too, right? Now it could be empathy, it could be that you have a strong sense of communication, it could be that you're a great team player, or you're just super good at organizing things, right? So these are the soft skills that a UX designer can have, and these skills are easily transferable. So yeah, so basically combining knowledge versus soft skills is how I basically got into this field. Yeah. What about you, Emi?
Yeah, I think you already answered all what I wanted to say. Actually, there's so much like a similar thinking going on in
Right.
designer. So yeah, I'm really surprised actually, you actually answered that question perfectly. One thing that I would add into that question might be maybe inquisitiveness. You need to be a constantly curious person. If you are not, don't have that curiosity about what's going on, what's the user experience and how can build it better, iterate, you're just gonna stop there, and there's no growth, product growth, and it will not have like the life cycle. So I think that having inquisitiveness and try to continue to explore and to learn tirelessly, I think that will complete the piece actually. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I forgot to mention, once I started learning about design, I actually started training my eye to look for design wherever I would go. It could be on metro, it could be in a mall. And I would just think that, what's wrong with that? What's right with this? And why have they done this? So I actually got curious to learn why and what I'm seeing. And I just started paying more attention to detail, which is, I think, something that I transfer to currently what I'm doing. I think when I was learning about design, I learned to train myself, like the way I look at things. And that's one transferable skill that I had for my personal career growth. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think that's really great, and it shows your guys' passion. And then, like I'm assuming it also gets transferred into the products that you're building as well. So that's a great and inspiring way for every one of us to like do what you really want to do. You don't have to stick to your degree or your, like what people are saying. So yeah.
Question. Yes.
And yeah, I guess like just the final 5 minutes, I would like to ask one final question. Kind of like I know for a product manager, usually our end goal is that we want to either become like, head of product or CPO in some company, or maybe start something of our own. Like those are kind of the end goals, or like the most highest level position PMs could go. But I've really like I'm curious to know what a designer would think about what their end goal is, and what does that career ladder look like. So maybe like you can tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I constantly write my next career strategy, so I can do that. So these days, it's a very like times have changed, so we don't have to dwell on one specialty. Like we're talking about like T-shaped designer, jack of all trades, unfortunately. So at the end of the day, there are so many areas you can scale your skill set as a UX designer. So one of the things might be just go up all the like a corporate ladder, like a typical, career path might be become senior designer, maybe UX team leader and a manager, whatever, and then like a chief creative officer. So that's the top thing you can reach as a UX designer. So creative, officer, they do all kinds of building touch points with the customers, users. So you actually direct all the kind of, experience in an organization. And another career track might be something a little bit flexible, like you want to be an advisor to a startup, as a UX expert, and maybe, I don't know, part-time, you want to, like maybe work on your own product. And the third one might be maybe work in academia. So actually my real passion is public education. So I don't know, right now I work in a big corporate, but maybe in 10 years, I want to teach in one of those design schools, maybe on the design thinking, class or UX, whatever. So I think that's the kind of career track that I envision. So the point is, all the boundaries are getting blurred these days. So don't focus on just one spot, no sweet spot, just keep exploring and see what's going on out there. Yeah.
Ah, I see. And what about you, Simran? Like, what is your end goal or something?
I'm still, like Emi said, that I'm currently still trying to figure out my end goal. However, I do know my next goal, which is to become a product manager.
Oh, okay.
Tanmay, why don't you tell me how I can do
Huh?
that?
Oh, okay. I mean, so yeah, I guess that's a very interesting question, because when I think about it, UX designer and product manager both kind of have a great overlap of skills.
Right.
So that you're already almost 70% of the way there. I think the rest of the point would be like maybe training a little bit on your business mindset, or like understanding how you have UX KPIs, how like business KPIs work, and maybe like having more of a like empathy is definitely important, because now you'll be maybe speaking to more stakeholders, and like especially as a product manager you need to be able to influence people without like showing any authority. That's like our core like influence without authority. So like how good are your negotiation skills, how good is your prioritization? So I think that's a key thing, because as a designer maybe you don't have a scope, you can really think about the ideal solution, but as a product manager you really need to prioritize between like these three things, which one is the most important one right now. And so if you can like if your prioritization skills in your real life are great as well, and I think that would really help you. Other than that, obviously it's like we also learned on the job a lot of the things, but your thirst for knowledge and inquisitiveness is also one of the key factors. So actually it shouldn't be that hard. Maybe a little bit of technical knowledge will help. So if you can understand about what goes behind the systems that you're designing, that would help, because maybe that way your communication with developers becomes easier, right? And that's also one of the keys. Like maybe another session we could do is like the developer and product manager communication, because that's another whole different struggle that we have as well. So yeah, and then if you really want like you learned Photoshop and everything, I think there's some good suggestions coming in from Oliver. If you can learn some coding, that's the best way to empathize with developers. So yeah, but yeah, again, like it's something that you can learn while on the job. So to get into the industry, I think just reach out to the product manager, the one you're working with, and shadow them and understand whether there's something you want to do, and like what more do you need, and figure out the gaps in that. So yeah, I hope that helps. And maybe
definitely.
But yeah, I think with that we kind of let's wrap up this event, because we've already gone a little bit over time. But I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope that the people who stuck around, I'm so surprised so many of you guys stuck around.
Thank you for your moderation.
Yeah, no problem. I really want to have more of these conversations as well. Just before we open the floor to the questions, I think like if you guys would like to just share your like how people can contact you, maybe they have questions, or maybe they want to share their work or get feedback or ask for referral, please like let us know if you like how they can contact you, and if you would like to shout anything else out as well, like please feel free to use this platform. So Simran, maybe we can start with you.
Yeah, I actually want to inform everyone here. And firstly, I want to thank everyone here for sticking by till this time. And thank you so much for being a part of this. If you're interested in such talks, I actually do host UX talk every week with extremely talented designers from across the world. So please make sure that you follow me on Instagram, because these talk sessions happen on Instagram Live. And as I'm talking, I will share my LinkedIn and my Instagram for my design blog, where you can be a part of the UX talk series. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining. It really, really means a lot to all of us here. Yeah. You just made our efforts worthwhile. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I really hope that people took a lot of great takeaways, and I'll also be summarizing them in an article. So yeah, in the meanwhile, Emi, like, would you like to also share us your communication where people can contact you?
I was not able to prepare anything special, so there's my flat, LinkedIn URL. You can just access and send me requests. And actually, as I said before, so I'm very passionate about public education, and my career goal in 10 years, not right now, is gonna be actually teaching in design school, mentoring. So please just reach out to me if you have any, like career goals and wanna, discuss or just have any questions. So I'll be happy to answer, really. Yeah. So I think that's all I want to say today. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. And like, I'll just take the final minute to talk about ProductTank. So yeah, so as you guys saw, this was like an experiment we are doing in ProductTank, where we want to bring people together and have these kind of conversations. So if you feel like you would like to talk about something, or you have something to present, or just would like to use our community or platform to share it, we are more than available to do that. So please just reach out to me. You guys may be already on the Slack. If you're not, the link is in the meetup page through which you found out about this event. So yeah, please definitely do that. And on the other side, if you're interested in just product management in general and would like to have a chat, please feel free to reach out to me as well. I'll put my LinkedIn in the chat. And I'll be summarizing this whole talk and putting the key points in an article, which I'll share on my LinkedIn as well as on the meetup page, along with the webinar and everything. So if you're interested to maybe look back on this webinar, or you want to read that article, also please feel free to follow the LinkedIn or the meetup. Yeah, and with that, I would like to conclude this event. Again, thanks everyone for joining us. And at this point of time, if anyone would like to ask Emi or Simran or even me any questions directly, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. I think we would love to also know what you guys thought about this event, and if there's any other way we can share our knowledge or experience. So yeah, let's have the next 10 minutes as an open session. Otherwise, I would like to wish everyone a great evening, and hope to see you in our next event as well. Thank you so much.
Have a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So, okay. So if while other people may or may not contact, I can just talk about some of the questions that were shared in the chat. So is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay. So I guess, yeah, one of the questions, and I kind of agree with this as well, is that how much, have you guys also involved developers in the whole UX design process or design thinking? If so, what kind of value add do they bring? And if not, what is the reason for maybe not including developers? So yeah, Simran, do you have any answer for this kind of question?
So yeah, particularly in the way how my team works, we do have to allow the developers in on at least once a week, just to sort of share what we're doing, what's coming for them. And we also have a separate session for design handoff, in which we sort of explain the entire specs, and we also give a spec sheet if required. Well, when it comes to communication with developers, I think the only time we actually have sort of a conflict is when there is a trade-off of assets, because sometimes they would have specific requirements when it comes to assets, and that can be a cause of conflict. But besides that, I think they do bring a lot to the table, not specifically to me, but just to the product in general, because sometimes their opinions and perspectives can be pretty great. Yeah, that's
Okay.
all I want to say. Yeah.
Cool.
I have a quick answer for that.
Yes, yes, please.
Quick one. So I used to work at a startup really briefly. So I experienced the entire cycle of a product development. So I used to attend all the product, sprint meetings, retrospectives, and whatever. So yeah, I mean, so much going on. But at the end of the day, though, what I learned is that you don't need to attend all the, DevOps meetings, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely.
Try to prioritize, focus on bringing the user experience and reach out to them. So that kind of building, relationship with them and the smooth communication kind of, I think that part is way more important than spending your entire day going to sprint meetings, whatever. So let's privatize, also be part of the team. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, cool. And then we have one final question, where it was like someone said that they were building an infrastructure as a service provided over API. And in that case, do you think like a UX designer could be able to contribute to this kind of service, where maybe like it's a minor part of the user journey or does not require like a lot of UI as such? Yeah, so I guess like David asked this question because he was saying like, is it worth hiring a UX designer for his product? And so I just wanted to know whether you guys have had any experience working on like UX for products which don't have a specific UI or something. And then in that case, how can a UX designer contribute? Yeah.
Yeah, quick answer here. So yeah, maybe Simran can elaborate, but yeah, there is every touch point. There's always touch point. There's always user experience. Even if there's no UI, there's a UX, So what I work right now is I try to build like a customer touch points, but we also, try to work on like operation side, like a call center dashboard and some other less touch point, like, I don't know, really backend the system, kind of thing. So, you can help them try to find out what's the best user flow, what's the best user journey, what are the best use cases, instead of just building UI and, pushing pixels. So there's always potential for user experience. Yeah.
Can I follow up question? Hi, this is David. I asked the question. Is it okay if I follow up?
Oh, okay, sure.
So how easy do you think it is to find UX designers that are able to design touch points that aren't UIs?
Oh, can you say the
oh, sorry, was I cutting out?
Yeah. How do you find, and what's the next?
How easy it is to find UX designers who are able to design touch points which are not user interfaces, UIs.
For example, can it be sound? Yeah. I
like, like anything, like if, I see a lot of UX designers kind of put wireframing or as a pretty standard part of their flow, but, they might be designing a phone touch point, or they might be designing something that doesn't use a screen at all, right? But still it's a customer touch point. And so I'm wondering how common of a skill that is to be able to think outside of just, it might be more than a UI. Is that an advanced skill for UX designer, or is it pretty common? How easy is it to find UX designers that can
It's like you're working on a very interesting, unique, product. I don't know, but yeah, I think it'll be, to be honest, very tough to find someone in Japan. So you might have to work with the different time zones, maybe reach out to California, like the Bay Area or something. So yeah, basically, I think it'll be very hard to find in this market. And the second, thing, you don't have to reach out, but you can collect, data and feedback from different UX designers in Japan. So one person can provide you maybe just the facet, just the perspective, and the other person can provide another perspective, the third person, third perspective. So you get all the feedback from UX designers and put together and build it to your own user experience. I think that might be a more realistic solution.